Alright, let's go, Ranger.
Bernie Jamal Porche, Creole pronunciation Porche, born 1979, to Bernie Porche and Trinell Harris in New Orleans, Louisiana, was small in stature. Watching the killers and the hustlers out the Noya, Tank would grow up wanting to be just like them. It is rumored that Tank's first time putting his hands on a machine gun was a .22 caliber machine gun identical to the one in the infamous Malcolm X photo. The story goes like this. Back in the G, when the Magnolia was beefed out with the mouth, them boys was about to spin. Tank, wanting a piece of the action, would beg Dooney to go on that creep. While the other steppers wasn't with it, they would tell Tank to stand down. Insisting that he was a gangster and about that life, Tank would continue to beg to make that move. Growing tired of hearing Tank's whining, Dooney, wanting to test his nuts, would slide that boy a .22 caliber machine gun. The rest would be history. Big Head Larry, however, did not respect Tank's gangster. Knowing that Tank was just a little kid, Big Head Larry would jack Tank, feeling like there would be no repercussions. Big Bernie, Tank's pops, sensing that Tank was headed down the wrong path, would ship that boy downtown. Unbeknownst to Big Bernie, that Bernard was just as worse, if not worse, than the Noya. Coming up in the Bernard, Tank will go on to earn a name for himself in the streets. Let's get back to Big Head Larry. Niggas out the project will say that once Tank became of age, he never forgot that Big Head Larry went with his move on him. And just like a real gangster is supposed to do, every time that Tank would see that boy Big Head Larry, Tank would run his pockets. It wouldn't be long before Tank would find himself landing a real bid. In 1997, Tank would catch a pistol charge that would put him in the feds. While in the feds, Tank would allegedly get into it with an OG out the yo behind that white lightning, aka prison wine, moonshine type shit. The story goes like this. Tank allegedly ain't paid the OG for the white lightning or some shit like that. Dude tried to push that knife on Tank but was unsuccessful. As far as the OG chasing Tank around the yard with the knife, that part I'm not sure about. Tank dropped his nuts in that bitch too. It's rumored that Tank and his little partner jumped on Johnny Davis, aka Tank War Fat, slashing him in the face with a razor behind some backdoor shit, and Fat talking crazy. Years later, Fat will pull that same move on another gangster from the NO, up the knife on the homie behind rumors of Fat sending letters to the DA. I'll save the rest of that story for another ep. If you know anything about Tank War Fat, you would know that boy was trying to big dog shit at every joint he went to. Nigga, I'm Johnny Davis, aka Tank War Fat. Check my resume round. You about that gangster shit, the streets talk. Niggas be implicating you in all kinds of shit. Some true, some not so true. Two of the most talked about eps involving Tank would be the deletions of Randall Watts, aka Calio Slim, and Dodo of Tough Guy Records. For a long time, there has been whispers in the streets of the NO about Tank's involvement in the murders of both Slim and Dodo. Those whispers would trigger back and forth arguments from both people who were around the situation and people who were merely just peons repping like they built like that. Now let me drop this jewel right quick for the youth if y'all watching. Just because you're out the Calio doesn't mean you're a gangster and was involved with all the gangster shit that was going down with the real gangsters out the yo. Same goes for the niggas out in the other project. Take for example the Magnolia. If you think for 1 second a dude like Lil Wayne was involved with all the gangster shit that was going down behind the scenes with CMR, you need to rethink your life choices. Fuck all that, man. Shout out to the homie Todd Days, a nigga official official like a referee with a whistle. Shout out to that boy Jared out there Nolia. Shout out to Chico Bailey out there 9. Shout out to Cutboy Corey out there Yo. And shout out to Elvin Mingo, aka Nook, out there Bernard. Real certified gangsters that made it out the game with no flaws, who be rocking with the content. Appreciate you for pulling up on the channel. With that being said, Lil Wayne is a rapper, not a gangster. If you were pulling off any gangster shit, you will be dead or locked up with the rest of the real gangsters. Only a few make it out the streets, and that's 9 times out of 10 after doing a 10, 20, or 30 piece. Now let's get back to Shorty. In an unfortunate turn of events, Tank, who had vowed never to go back to prison, will lose his life at the age of 37. This shit right here is wild.
More than a week ago, NOPD officers and Louisiana state troopers were involved in a very dangerous situation with 3 men who made very bad decisions. This is what men and women in law enforcement are up against every single day. This is the mindset. Just threaten the lives of members of our community. They threatened the lives of our law enforcement officers and ultimately led to the death of one of the men involved. Later at the hospital, we found 2 extra magazines for 9mm and other live ammunition in Porsche's pockets.
Tank will get the drop on Walter Sterling, aka Pooh Man, following him in another whip with the intentions of deleting Pooh Man. Pooh Man will go with the banana and the tailpipe trick on Tank and call them people on him, letting them know that Tank was following him. The Louisiana State Troopers would, however, report a different story. They would claim that they were on routine patrol looking for stolen vehicles and tried to make a traffic stop on a vehicle that they believed to be stolen. As they were stopping that vehicle, Tank hopped out and started busting at them, hitting one of the troopers in the left elbow. During the hunt for suspects, they will come across one of the suspects, who they would later identify as Tank, in which they would exchange gunfire near Law and New Orleans Street. News outlets would obtain dash cam footage of Tank firing at them dicks as they gave chase. During the shootout, Tank can be seen falling to the ground. Tank, who had vowed to never go back to prison, would unfortunately delete himself before he could be arrested.
As we have done in every police-involved shooting since I've been the chief, within the first days of the incident, we brought the family of Mr. Porche into the Public Integrity Bureau, and they had an opportunity to view this video, and I personally met with them about the circumstances of this incident, and they were grateful for that opportunity.
The NOPD says Porche opened fire on Louisiana state troopers prior to getting into the gun battle with the NOPD. Porche shot one trooper in the arm. His injury is not life-threatening. LSP followed Porche and 2 other unidentified men who they say were in a stolen vehicle. Police are still looking for those men, but inside that car was this assault rifle.
And they are willing to do whatever it takes to keep from going to jail. Their actions gave our officers no choice but to respond with deadly force.
Chief Harrison says he decided to release the video as part of a new policy.
The other 2 suspects are still on the loose, and if you know anything that could help police, call Crime Stoppers at 822-1111.